Investor. I'm your host, Tom Caffarella. The focus of the show is helping real estate agents get off the real estate roller coaster. And I've got a topic that I've never covered before, but is very, very important to what is going on in the world today, which is the devaluation of the US dollar, the devaluation of our currency, and how it impacts not only the everyday person, but the average real estate agent, and how investing plays into that. So I think we kind of all know that the dollar is becoming worth less and less and less. We're all aware of how much inflation there has been over the past few years. We feel it, we see it. I want to talk a little bit about why it's happening, and I want to talk a little bit about how agents can use investing strategies to overcome this inflation. So kind of like going back, to the 1970s. I don't want to go too much into this, but I do want to kind of cover this, really quickly. The US dollar used to be backed by gold. And don't quote me on this, but I believe for every $35 that the US government issued, that they printed, we used to have 1 ounce of gold. So that was kind of the ratio. And the entire purpose of doing that is to ensure that we have sound money, that we don't have crazy inflation, and that every dollar that we earn or save can still have value into the future. In the 1970s, we ended up going off of that gold standard. So you used to literally be able to, if you had $35, you would basically be able to be guaranteed that you would be able to get 1 ounce of gold. And as I am standing here today, the price of gold is over $5,000 an ounce. And while that doesn't necessarily directly, it's not a 100% direct correlation with how much dollars have been printed, it is a pretty good estimate as to how much the US dollar has gone down in value over that 50-year span, right? So again, $35 an ounce to $5,000 an ounce. And what's interesting kind of about money in general is that since I've been in real estate and since I've been a real estate broker going back to 2005 is when I got my license. 2006 is when I became a broker. For the most part, almost every single new agent that I've ever had come into my brokerage that's brand new, you ask them kind of like what their goals are, how much do they want to make in year one. You almost always get the same response, which is that agents want to make 6 figures. And it's kind of an interesting, funny, maybe sad commentary on money in general. But there is a tremendous, tremendous difference on what you could buy in 2006 with $100,000 versus what you could buy in 2026, 20 years later, with that same $100,000. So, what I want to say quickly is if you are a real estate agent and you don't invest, right, you are actively building a business that produces dollars, right? That's kind of an obvious statement. And your ideal goal, of course, is to make as many of those dollars as possible each and every year. Now, for most people, if they're lucky enough, most agents, by the way, are not even lucky enough to save much money after all of the commissions that they've earned. In reality, most of the agents that I talk to, most of the agents that I know, not only are not even saving money after the commissions they made, a lot of times they're working part-time or they're doing supplementary things to even make, ends meet when it comes to selling real estate. But if you are lucky enough to make enough money, whatever, money you need every single year to survive, if you are lucky enough to be able to save money at the end of the day, and then you put those dollars in the bank, each and every year, your money is losing somewhere between 2 and 10% compounding every single year, which is why, when you actually look at how much money you need to retire or how much money you need to really do anything, if you look in 5 and 10-year increments, that amount goes up and up and up. The more amount that you need to save, the more amount that you need to make, etc. And it's really unfortunate. And if you study, there's so many really good books about this, but Ray Dalio put out a book that kind of goes over essentially the rise and fall of civilizations over time, documented, recorded, civilizations. Of course, there's a lot that happened before we documented all this stuff, but recorded, civilizations, rise and fall of Rome, rise and fall of Greece, all of these different places, they all kind of follow a very, very similar pattern. And it's the pattern that unfortunately America is a part of right now, which is that, you start out, your country starts out, and they're working. People are working a ton. People are saving a ton. They're doing everything within their power to kind of come into power, right? And the currency is backed by an asset. And the most common backing that these assets have is gold. And this is true throughout recorded history. Gold has always been thought of as money. It is rare. It is something that can be divisible. It is something that you just can't manufacture more of. So it's a finite quantity. It's portable, etc. And in almost all cases, if you study past civilizations, and the United States is the most recent kind of superpower, in almost all cases, these countries end up going off of the gold standard, meaning that the countries are able to produce as much of their currency as they feel like, which is what's happening in America, which causes the inflation. And over the course of time, over a long enough period of time, all of these superpowers end up failing because of the huge gap between the rich and the poor. And we all know that that's a very big thing in the United States right now, where the ultra rich control such a big proportion of all of the resources. And then you have poor, right? And you have middle class that keeps shrinking and shrinking, that keeps on basically having to fight and fight and fight for not a lot, right? And that usually, unfortunately, causes a revolution. But the entire purpose of what I'm discussing today isn't necessarily to talk about history. It's to talk about how you, as a real estate agent and real estate investor, can not only preserve what you have and grow what you have. Okay. And that is through the ownership of assets, right? And that's what we teach and we preach at Agent Investor. You have got to own and hold assets over the long haul. And you can really look, you can almost throw, you can put up all of the groups of asset classes on the wall. And again, in the 20 years that I've been in real estate, and you can look at the value of almost any of those assets, whether it's stocks, precious metals, real estate, whatever. And they've gone dramatically, dramatically up. And I remember just, a couple of reference points. I remember when I first started investing in stocks, and by the way, I'm not a big stock investor, but I do invest a little bit in stocks. And I remember the S&P 500 being at 1,500 around 2005. Today, as I talk, that number is now 7,000. I can also remember gold and silver gold being, say, at like 500, right? 20 years ago. Now it's 5,000. I remember silver being at $30 just a couple of years ago. It's now at about $100. And now, for those of you who have been in the real estate industry for long enough, if we talk about, properties and just talk about properties locally, multifamily assets locally, I can remember a 3-unit property in, greater Boston being worth 20 years ago somewhere around 300 or 400 or $500,000. And now all of those assets are worth well over $1 million. Again, why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this because I talked about there being a very small portion of people that are at the top, that are the uber wealthy, that control all the money, right? Ideally, you want to be in that group, right? Then you have the middle class who is working very hard, very diligently, not saving a lot, not really ever retiring. And we see this a lot in the real estate agency world. And you see it when you go do a showing or you go to an open house or you look around in your office. And there are very, very many people that are real estate agents that are of retirement age or well past retirement age that are not yet retired. And yes, there is an argument that some of those people love real estate. They want to be in it. They're just making extra money, whatever. But I would argue, and I see, and again, I'm a broker owner with 400 agents in my company. I see many of those agents not necessarily working just because they love it, but working because they have to, right? Because again, the middle class is getting squeezed. The middle class is not earning enough money to save enough money to retire. And even when the middle class does save money, it gets deflated away so that if you hold your money in cash, a lot of times by the time you hit retirement age, $100,000 saved over the course of 30 years is worth way less. It has way less purchasing power because of inflation. And by the way, there is nothing, I don't really care, what gets printed publicly. There is nothing that is going to stop the prices of things from going up. It's only a matter, the only argument that you can have in general is how much will prices of things go up. So if we kind of know that, and we are a real estate professional that is doing our best and working a ton of hours and either saving little or nothing, or you're saving in cash, this is where you really need to try to put yourself in that upper bracket of people that are growing their net worth. A lot of times people will say to me that they're interested in investing, but they'll get around to it, at some point in the future. And I think that there is a misunderstanding when it comes to investing, that it's something that would be good to do, but it's not needed. When in reality, especially for real estate agents, in my opinion, it is something that is needed to be done. And I'm going to talk about what investing does for agents. And again, why I believe it is necessary. It is not something that's optional for real estate agents. Okay. And how real estate agents have a major, major advantage when it comes to investing. Okay. So again, the average person, right? They go out, they work a job. Hopefully they have enough money, left at the end of the day to invest in something, right? But they don't have access to properties. They don't have access to information, and they don't have access to people that will allow them to build their wealth in the way that real estate agents do. So again, whether you're self-employed as a real estate agent or whether you work a job, just saving a little bit of money every year is typically not going to get you to the point where you're going to be able to retire anytime soon. And again, for clarity, and just to be very precise about this, I am not talking about people who make, $500,000 plus per year. If you make $500,000 plus per year, you're probably in a position where you can save enough money. You can invest it in stocks or real estate or bonds or precious metals. And as long as you're investing that high income into assets, hard assets over the course of time, you'll do really well. But I'm talking more to the real estate agents who earn under $250,000 a year or much less, right? Anywhere from, 20 grand to $250,000 per year, that don't have a lot of money at the end of the day to save and invest. what do you do? Like, how do you get around inflation? How do you get around, oh my goodness, I made $100,000 this year and I saved 20 grand. Well, like that 20 grand, and if you just save it over the course of 10, 15, 20, 30 years is going to be basically nothing. So how do we accelerate that? How do we make sure that, you know, we are able to hold assets over the long haul? And again, for those of you who have heard me speak on this before, it's by following the agent investor model. And I'm going to explain that model really quickly, why it's important, and how you can kind of get involved in it. If we all agree that most real estate agents don't make enough money to save a ton to then invest in assets, well, how do you go about actually building your wealth if you don't have the luxury of making $250,000 plus per year? It is by following the agent investor model. And I'm going to talk quickly about the agent investor model, give you guys some information on how you can learn more, but I want to talk quickly about it. So step number one of the agent investor model is to keep selling real estate, but to focus your efforts more on sellers than on anything else. Okay. I am not advocating for real estate agents to stop working with buyers. I'm not trying to say you can't, buy buyer leads or you can't turn down buyers. You should still work with buyers, but spend extra time developing seller appointment lead generation strategies so that you meet with 1 or 2 or 3 sellers every single week. If you are listening to this right now and you are not generating 1 or 2 or 3 seller appointments per week, make sure that you jump on to my on-demand webinar at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com to go over those strategies. The number one thing you can do, forget about even if you want to invest, the number one thing that you can do to build your business as a real estate agent, forget about inflation, forget about anything, just as a real estate agent, is to generate more seller appointments in a week. Most real estate agents don't even generate 1 seller appointment per week. If you are not generating 1 seller appointment per week, you've got to figure out why, what you need to do. Again, you can learn more by jumping on my on-demand webinar at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. All right, so that's step one. And what is step one going to do? You're going to get in the door with more sellers. You're going to take more listings. You're going to make more money. Step number 2 is to offer the cash offer, a cash offer, through us, or you can do it yourself, to every single seller that you meet with. So when you go out and you have a listing appointment, or you know that somebody wants to sell their property, if you work with us, you're going to have 2 ways to help that seller. They can sell their house in the traditional way through you as a listing agent, or they have the option to hit the easy button, sell direct to us, not have open houses, not have to go through inspections, and they get a guaranteed number where we can close and buy on that property anywhere from a week to a couple of years. Now, if we buy that property, we are going to put up all the money, we're going to do the construction, and we're going to split the profits with you 50-50. Why is this important? Well, it's very important because the average profit that we split with agents is $80,000. What does that mean for you as the agent? For you as the agent, if you do a flip deal with us and you get a check for 40 grand, well, you can then use that money to invest in assets that are going to grow over time. This is the whole point of what I'm talking about today, is that you need to invest over the long haul. I know what I'm saying isn't really, it probably sounds obvious and not that complicated that real estate agents should buy assets. In my opinion, you should buy real estate, right? So if you do 3 or 4 partner deals with us, $40,000 times 4 partner deals, now you've got $160,000. Now, step number 3 of being an agent investor is to invest that money into passive assets. I'm a big fan of multifamily real estate. We teach and train agents how to invest in real estate, how to buy multifamily real estate, how to buy vacation rentals. But you can do it a lot of different ways. You could invest in gold or silver or the stock market or whatever. The important thing is that you are utilizing step number one to get seller opportunities, flippable seller opportunities. Step number two, you're either flipping on your own or partnering with us to then get those big chunks of income to then invest. And when I talk to real estate agents, as I do all the time, almost all real estate agents tell me that they want to invest in real estate. And why don't they? Well, the number one reason, it's almost 100% of the time, I want to invest, but I don't have the money. Why don't you have the money? Well, I'm a real estate agent that I am fighting every single day just to pay my bills or save a little bit of money. If you are out there hunting down real estate investing deals by going and trying to get more appointments with sellers, you are going to, by default, come across more fix and flip opportunities that you can then turn into partner deals with us, get big chunks of income, and invest that income. Okay? And everything that I just said can be done by simply following step number one, which is to focus a little bit more time, effort, and energy on sellers. Guess what? As real estate agents, that's what we should be doing anyways. We all know this, right? We all know we should be spending more time focusing on generating seller appointments. I teach and train people on how to do that on my call at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. And it's not super complicated, but it does take a proactive approach. It does mean that you're going to have to, air quotations, eat that frog every day. It does mean that instead of you waking up and being like, I'm not sure what I should do today, so let me open up my inbox and start replying to loan officers and insurance people and whatever, that you take control of your day. Eat that frog means you do the most important thing that you need to get done that day first thing in the morning. And we talk about the different strategies that you can utilize in order to get these seller appointments each and every week. Again, www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. And again, what most agents think about investing is, number one, well, I can't do it yet because I don't have money. Well, that's completely false. I just talked about why that's false. And number two, well, I'll get around to it like in another day, which we all know how that works. That other day typically doesn't come. And really, there is no reason to delay starting that process if you are an agent investor, because you are going to be spending most of your time focused on doing what you need to be doing anyways, which is generating face-to-face seller appointments. Again, if all of that makes sense to you, if all of that sounds good, make sure you jump on my next on-demand webinar at www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com, because the future is very uncertain in general. But what is certain is the value of our dollar is going to keep decreasing. And I don't know how fast that's going to accelerate. But all you need to do is to think back 10 or 15 or 20 years and think about what a loaf of bread used to cost. Think about what a house used to cost. Think about, what you used to be able to buy on the income that you earn. And if you're nervous about the future, then you have to start taking control of it. There is not going to be an end to the amount of money that is printed. Every dollar that is printed to fund a lot of different things in the US causes the value of our dollar to go down. So take control of your financial future. And again, learn more by going to www.partnerwithagentinvestor.com. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.